Alright, hey guys, welcome back to the course. In this lecture, I'm going to talk a little bit about the channel rack in FL Studio. So the channel rack contains all of our channels in our project. So what I mean by channels is basically audio samples, VST plugins, effects, or automations. Different sounds and instruments to the channel rack. It's very easy to do that. You can do it in the browser. So if you just browse for some, let's say, sounds, you can just drag it in like that. You can also choose your own samples and just drag them in like that to the channel rack. You can also press the little plus sign here to add a plugin. So all of these are FL Studio built-in plugins. We can also go to more plugins here to open up your third-party VST and audio unit plugins. Also delete one of the tracks here by just going to the track and press delete. If you want to modify the sound itself that the track contains, you just left click on the sound and you get this wrapper here, as they call it in FL Studio. And here you can modify a lot of different settings within the instrument or within the sound. So the wrapper is basically a sampler for audio files. So if you have an audio file imported to the channel rack and left click on it, then you will have the wrapper here. So the wrapper is basically, like I said, a sampler. If you have a VST plugin, for instance, you just left click on it and that will open up the VST plugin. Resize the channel rack so you can add in more steps into the step sequencer here. So if you resize it by this, you see you will get a lot more steps here. You can also resize it like this if you have more channels here. You can also resize it here if you have a lot of channels here and you want this channel rack window to get bigger. So you can do that. You can also press here to get different groups of channel racks. You can also resize the name here. So you see, now I can see it says classical acoustic here, which I couldn't do before. So you can resize the whole track name button here by doing it like that. You can also play and pause this pattern by clicking this button here. And here we have the main swing parameter, as you can see here. And here we have the graph editor, so you can modify the different parameters of each note in the selected pattern here. So you see you have note, velocity, release, fine pan, and other stuff like that. Then we have the piano roll overview, so you can just switch between the different views of having it like a step sequencer or having it more like a piano roll. So if you have it on like this, or if you have it on like this, but you can see the piano roll view in this selected track, you can always just right click to get the piano roll up like this. And now you can just edit different stuff and just close it by pressing the right click here again. So let's say that I want to edit the kick here. I can do a very simple thing like that, and I can enable and disable the tracks here. So let's disable the keys now and just having the kick here. And let's say that I want to create more advanced kind of notation here. I can just click here, I get up the piano roll, right click here, and now I can see my notes. I can also see the notes of the other track that I have here, but they are grayed out. And this is just because it's a lot simpler to create notes when you can see your other tracks notes as well. For instance, if you're creating a chord progression and then you want to create a melody on top of that, that is very handy to use. So as you can see here, I have a chord progression now and I can just draw up some melody if I would want to. But in this instance, I'm just creating the kick, so that wouldn't make a lot of sense. But as you can see here, I just right click on it and to open and close it. So it's very handy to have as well. And then I can go back to this view if I want to. So just left click to get the notes right up and just right click to delete them as well. And as I showed you before, you can just fill each 2 steps like that. You can fill each 4 steps. Let's get rid of that. Then we can enable and disable the track here. You have the track pan and you have the track volume, and then you have the selection of where you want to assign your track to the mixer. Let's create a new pattern. So I'm going to go to the plus sign here, and I'm let's name these drums like that. All right. So now I have a drums pattern here, and I want to create a kick drum, fill each 4 steps, of course. And then I want to fill each 8 steps. Hats, I want to fill each 2 steps. Snare, each 8 steps as well. And I want to move the clap and snare to these positions. Alright, so what you can do here in the channel rack is to group different things together. And what I mean by grouping is to basically sort the tracks in the channel rack to having them listed here in the list. Because let's say that you have hundreds and hundreds of different tracks in the channel racks and different sounds. You will be scrolling through the channel rack all the time when you're producing your music. And that can be annoying because maybe you just can't find the instrument that you want to work with, or let's say that you're just focusing on the drums, for instance. Then it's a lot easier to create groups here. So let's say that I want to group all of these 4 instruments together, or these tracks here together. You can just select them here with this little, as you can see here, this box here. As soon as they are green, you can just have them selected, or that is a track that is selected. But let's say that I want to select all of these 4 here. You can just select them like that. And when they are selected, you just go here to the channel rack options here, and you can find the group selected ones. So now let's call these drums again. And as you can see, this is now a new option in the list here. So I can just pull up the drums here, and this will only show the drums. So I can alter between all of the tracks, drums for instance, and let's say that I want to have more melodic things or piano or stuff like that. I can just group piano sounds as well and have them sorted as an option in the list as well. The thing that is very cool with the grouping in the channel rack is that you can color all of these tracks here, and you can make a gradient of it. So if I go to color selected and gradient here, I can choose the first color. Let's say that I want it to be black. Or yeah, let's choose whatever color. Okay, black. And then I can choose the second color. So let's say I want it to be green. So now it will actually make a color gradient of from the first color to the second color. And that would make it a lot easier to find these instruments if I color gradient, let's say from yellow to white or from blue to white, and then you can see that, okay, these tracks are the drums and these tracks are, let's say, piano sounds or other melodic sounds. Yeah, you can do it like that, of course. What I do most often is to just create lists here in the channel rack, and yeah, I can sort the different things here as well. But yeah, sometimes you just throw in different instruments just to try them out, you know, and it can be very messy here in the channel rack if you're just playing out with different instruments all the time and just throwing in sounds in there all the time. But as soon as I'm away from that creative moment and I want to actually start to arrange the track and yeah, just create the track basically, then I always do it like this. I organize all of these instruments and all of these tracks in the channel rack, and that makes it a lot easier to create mix downs later on and yeah, just to arrange the track basically. So it's very, very important to stay organized when you're creating your track. And yeah, as I said before, just separate the creative process and the more organized process. So you want to be kind of messy when you're just creating your track, you know, and getting like creative. Just don't focus on like grouping and listing when you're creative. I mean, for me, that's the most important thing, that I want to be creative and I just can throw in different stuff and try out all of the different combinations of sounds. But then you eventually have a very nice idea of a track, and then you want to arrange the track and actually finish the track. And then these different things here with organizing a list and organizing here and coloring and stuff, that is very important. But otherwise you can just have thousands of tracks, let's say, and you can't find that sound that you created before because because you have so many tracks and you can't differentiate them between, because you didn't make colors and group them together or stuff like that. So I have these notes laid out like this. So let's go to Graph Editor, and now I want to modify. Let's say I want to have the clap, for instance. I want to shift the notes a little bit forward, just to have that more human kind of feeling when you're having the clap. So this is the note, so I want to shift it just a little bit like this, and let's take a listen to it. Just overdo it so you can hear what I'm doing here when I'm shifting the note. Let's say that I want to have the velocity in the, let's say, hi-hats here. I want them to be more kind of like a human is actually playing the hi-hats. So maybe something like that. Or it sounds much better like that. One more thing that I want to show you here in the channel rack is that you can go to, let's say that I want to select all of these 4 tracks here, and I have a long list of different tracks, and I want to kind of get more space for other instruments. What I can do here is to go to zip selected, and now you can see all of these tracks are kind of hidden here. You can still see by the color what track it is. So this saves you a lot of space if you have a lot of different channel rack tracks here. You can actually open them up like this. So yeah, just click on them like that. And you can also just right click on the track to kind of unzip it as well. So just to get back to how it was. Thing that I really like to have, and this is a must for me every time when I produce with FL Studio, is to go to the channel rack options here and choose detached. That way, if I do something else in FL Studio, I always have the channel rack open up like this. So I can just put it like here in the lower bottom, and now I can work on my track like that. And if I want to let's say I want to go to one of the tracks, I can just put it up on the list here. Let's say I want to go to the drums, and now I can modify the drum sounds or just modify the different notes of that instrument. So just right click like that to get the piano roll and to get rid of the piano roll, and then I can keep moving on with the arrangement here like that. There are also more options here in the channel rack. So if you right click on one of the tracks here, you have the piano roll, of course, Graph Editor. Then you have the rename color and icon, which is very handy to use. I just showed you that before, but I just want to mention it one more time here. So you can rename the track, you can color it as well. Let's go here. All right, so we have change color, change icon. You can choose whatever icon you want here, like that, just to make it stand out more. You can load a new sample here, for instance. You can insert something else. So you can insert a VST plugin, for instance, here. So you can do it like that as well. You can replace. So you can replace this track with an VST instrument. You can clone it. So let's say you want the exact same kick here. You can just press it like that and you clone it. Then we have delete. So you can delete the track, get rid of it. Nice feature here as well is to cut or copy. So let's say that I have steps here in the step sequencer that I want to copy on to, let's say, the snare here. I can just go and paste it like this, and I get the same information, the MIDI information, as I copied here. What you can also do is to rotate. So you can get them in time, the notes in time, but just shifted. So if you take a listen to it, and you will hear what it actually does. So that covers the basics of the channel racks. I hope you learned a lot from this video, and I hope to see you in the next lecture. Hey guys, welcome back to the course. In this lecture I'm going to talk about the mixer in FL Studio. So to open up and close the mixer, you go to this button here, View Mixer, like that. You can also press F9 to enable and disable the mixer. Let's move it here a bit. Okay, so here are all of the tracks that we have right now in our mixer. You can also choose different views of the mixer. So let's say you want compact, you can see all of these different tracks here. There's a lot of them. And the mixer is basically where you would send all of your sounds and create different effects. You can set volumes, you can pan them, and you can group different things together so they sound like one. You can just put on different effects to it. So let's say you want to compress sounds together, or you want to create reverbs, delays, all of the different stuff. EQ, for instance, which is very important to do. And you do that all in the mixer here. So that is why the mixer is very important and what makes your track becomes live, you know. First track here is the master track. So the master track is where all of the sound will output through FL Studio. So all of the sound that you hear from your speakers would come through the master track. So that is basically the output, the sound output of FL Studio. So all of the tracks combined will output through the master channel. Then we have all of the individual tracks in the mixer here. So what you can do to assign these different tracks to the mixer is to go to the channel rack here and select whatever pattern you want to have, or if you want to select all of the different instruments in your channel rack, then you will see this dialog here that you can set whatever mixer channel you want that sound to be assigned to in the mixer. So let's say I want my other classical acoustic sound here to be set to insert 3, then you will see the insert 3 is now selected here. And you can rename color and icon. So let's say I want this to be named as our instrument in the channel rack, our track here in channel rack. I can set a color here as well. So now you can see that this is the track in the mixer and this is the track that is linked to it. So the track in the channel rack, the classical acoustic, is linked to the mixer channel number 3 here in our mixer. So all of the sounds that comes through the classical acoustic sound here, so let's say that I play this sound, it will output through this mixer channel first, through all of these settings here. And what I mean by the settings here is all of the things that you will set here, which I will go through in a moment here. And when that is done, it will output through the master channel. And on the master channel, you can also have a set of plugins here as well that will affect all of the tracks in the mixer. So let's take a look at this right-hand side of the mixer. As you can see here, we have different slots. So all of the slots here is basically space for you to open up different effect plugins. So let's say that we want this classical acoustic sound to have a compressor. Then you can go to here Dynamics and Fruity Compressor, for instance, which is a Fruity Loop built-in compressor plugin. And now I can set the different effects for this compressor to be affecting only this sound, or only whatever is outputted through mixer channel 3. You can also combine different effect plugins. So let's say that you want a compressor first, and then you want a delay plugin, for instance. So now you have the compressor and the delay plugins after each other. Then you can also set how much of the effect you want to be outputted through this sound here. So let's say that I only want half of the compression, and the other half would be not compressed sound or not compressed signal. And then you can set the same thing with the delay. You can choose how much you want, or you can choose all of the settings here, that all of the signal is coming through these settings, through these plugins. So basically what you do here is to just set how much of the signal you want to be affected off this plugin here. You can also enable and disable each of the plugins here. So let's say you want to A and B different settings, you want to try them out. You can listen to your track and disable and enable them. That is very handy to use. Then you have an EQ section here. So you can EQ your sound with this graphical interface here. You can also do it with these meters here, like that. And you have different settings here as well, so you can set the different X and Y angles of this EQ, like that. You can use this EQ, but what I do most often is to choose an EQ from the plugins here. And you have a lot of, like, a very good different EQ plugins from FL. This one is pretty good, but we have another plugin here. Let's replace that with the Parametric EQ2. And this is a very nice, it sounds good, and it's very transparent, so you won't have your sound be affected or colored by this EQ. So it's very nice to use. It's very easy to use as well. It looks all very similar to FabFilter plugins, which I like a lot. So Fruity Loops has this built-in, which is very nice. And you can see you have different tonality of the EQs as well here. You can see where the sub should be of the EQ: bass, low mid, mid, high mid, and so on and so forth. So you can see what you're actually doing here. So let's say that you have a sound that have a lot of bass, but you want to get rid of the sub, then you know that you should go down around here to get rid of the sub, basically. Resize the mixer window by doing like this and like that. And as I showed you before, you can choose different view settings of the mixer. What I use most often is this extra large, because I get I get a very nice overview of the tracks here. I can see the signal coming through and all of these stuff. I'm also going to show you in a moment what all of these settings does. And you can also see the different plugins named here in each of the tracks. So you necessarily don't have to go to the right hand side, but you know, they are there anyway. So so you can just take a look at the selected track here. But let's say that you're out of focus. Let's say you're somewhere here. You can see that these plugins are set on this track, so you don't have to select that track to see the plugins here. One thing that I really like to do in the mixer is to go to the view here and set the track inspector on left side. That will show the plugins on this side instead, and then I don't have to really go to this side. But this is how I prefer it. Look at the individual mixer channel track here. So first you have the track name here and track number. Then you have enable and disable. You have the panning here. Then you have the volume meter and volume level. After that we have track latency, we have arm disk recording, stereo separation, and you can swap left and right channels here. Here you have the amount of stereo separation that you want. You can do it like that. Then we have the names of the plugins here. Then we have enable effect slots, so you can enable or disable all of these plugins here. And that is it for the individual mixer channel here. As well is to, let's say I select one of these mixer channels here. I can select in the channel rack here, I can select, let's say, all of the drums here. And I'll go to the mixer here and just right click and channel routing, route selected channels starting from this track. So now you can see all of these selected instruments here, selected tracks in the channel rack, are routed to the mixer. So now you can see, instead of creating or assigning all of these individual tracks to a separate mixer track, then renaming them, color them, and so on and so forth. So now all of this is done automatically, and by choosing to route these tracks to the mixer. So now they are renamed and colored and everything like that. So that is very nice to use, and you will see all of these here. So let's say that I want to put on a reverb on a snare, for instance. So now I have the slots here on the left hand side. So I have the snare mixer channel selected, and I can go to, let's say here I want a reverb. So let's go to the Fruity Reverb 2 here. You can see I have a reverb on just the snare here. A lot of different options in the mixer here. You can right click here in the mixer and see a lot of different things you can do. Same thing goes here with the routing of the signal. So let's say that we now have all of our instruments here. You can see that these instruments are routed to this instrument. So let's get rid of that. Now you can see that, let's say that let's get rid of all of these here, like that. All right, so now you can see that this track goes through a cable that is kind of invisible here and goes to this track. So what that means is that the sound that comes through this track goes through the master, right? So then we have the same thing there, same thing there, and same thing there. So what you can do here is to route, let's say I want to route all of the drum signal here. Let's say that I want all of these, let's say just the drum section here. I want all of the drum sounds to be routed through insert 1, which will make our drum bus here. I can do that by just selecting them as I did before with the control or command click and just dragging them over like that. And then I can just right click on our track that we want it to be routed to and just press on route to this track only. And now you can see that the signal is routed through here. So then if you go to the insert, you can see that the insert itself is routed to the master. So the signal will now travel, all of these 4 mixer channel signal will travel through to this insert 1, and then the signal will travel through the insert 1's plugins if you have any, and then to the master. So it will actually go, instead of going through the master immediately, it will go through the insert 1 first, and that will make us a drum bus here. Separate these different mixer channels. So you can see we have drums here, then we have some classic acoustic instrument, and we have a piano. So it may be nice to just separate things here. So I can just go and press and create a separator between these tracks. Then we can create a separator between this track, like that. So now you can see we have our drum sections here. So these are kind of separated between all of these other mixer channels here. So that is a very basic overview of the mixer. You can see I just tried out the volume here, enabled and disabled the track. I panned it a bit. I create a stereo width here. I can also set the sound to be switched a bit in time with milliseconds, samples or beats. Yeah, and you can just create stereo width here as well, and you can enable and disable plugins if you have any on, like on this track. So you can do that by just clicking and clicking it again to enable and disable the plugins. To show you here in the mixer is that you can actually change the volume meter here to, instead of a dB meter, you can have it set to a waveform meter. You can do it by going to view here and switch it to waveforms. So now if I play here, you can see that all of these volume meters will show up as waveform meters. That is very handy to use if you want to see how big of a signal you have and where the signal is and all of the other stuff. That is very handy with waveforms. Alright guys, so that is it for the mixer, and I think you got a nice overview of the mixer here in FL Studio, and I'll see you in the next lecture. Okay guys, welcome back to the course. In this lecture I'm going to go through the playlist in FL Studio. So the playlist is basically where you arrange your track. So when you're creating your channel rack tracks here in the channel rack, you can just create them as clips, and then you take the clips into the playlist here. And you will basically build up your whole arrangement with these clips inside of the playlist. And by the way, I'm using the term clips because that is how it's used in Ableton and Logic, for instance, but in FL Studio you call them patterns. So each pattern has their own individual clip, So let's say that I have this pattern 1 here, and I create this pattern 1 that contains this beat of kick drums. Now I can just take this pattern 1 and just paste it in to the playlist here. And then I can paste it whatever I want, how much I want of it. I can do it like that. I can also delete it by right-click at that. And yeah, it's very easy to do that. So if you want to create a new pattern, you just click plus here. You can rename it. So let's say hi-hats here, like that. And now I can choose between the different patterns here, or I can just scroll between the patterns here. So to arrange the pattern, you need to select the pattern that you want to arrange, and then just click simply into the playlist here to have that pattern inside of the playlist. So it is very easy to build up your track in FL Studio and just arrange the track by just creating these different patterns and just taking it into the playlist here and arrange the track by doing that. All right, to get a bit of a better understanding of the playlist in FL Studio, let's open up the FL Studio demo project that comes with FL Studio. So let's just click File here, and you can go to Recent Projects and New Stuff.flp. So as you can see, this is the demo project that FL Studio comes with, and it's a complete track here. It's a very nice kind of EDM track that comes with FL Studio, and you can see it's made by Adam Szabo and Johan Wilborg. And yeah, it may differ between your version and my version. Sometimes ImageLine has different demo projects, but in this case it's this track. So let's take a very quick listen to the track just so you can see how amazing tracks can be done inside of FL Studio.
There's a light over the ocean. There's a wind touching me. Another place ahead in motion. Good to finally set free.
So you can see how much of information there is. There's a lot of different audio here. It's a lot of MIDI, and you can see how quickly it works. FL Studio responds very quickly to every single instrument here. So yeah, FL Studio has a lot of potential here. You can see that this amazing track is made inside of FL Studio with just some patterns here, as you can see. And this is basically how the playlist works. So as you can see, it's just patterns, as I explained before how the patterns works. So as soon as I click on the pattern, I can just double click it here to get the piano roll. And if I select the pattern here, you can see that in the channel rack, this is the track that is being used. And here's the plugin for that particular sound. Let's take a look at the playlist, how it works. So here at the top, you can see the scroll bar here. You can scroll through the project in time like this. You can also see the time signature, so you can see how many bars there are here. You can zoom like this. You can see vertically and horizontally as well, like that. But there is a much more efficient way to scroll in FL Studio. So if you hold Alt and just scroll, you will see that it will zoom horizontally like this. And if you hold Control or Command on Mac and scroll, you will see you will get this vertically like that. All right, so one more thing about the pattern selection here. You can right click here to get all of the different patterns that you have in the projects. And you can also see the different patterns in this way. So you can see this is the patterns which is made by in the piano roll. So you can see all of the different MIDI data here. So if I double click, you can see the MIDI data. Then we have the different audio samples that are inserted here in the playlist. So you can just basically drag in an audio sample directly into the playlist, and then you will see it in this list. So let's say that let's say I want a drum loop here. So as you can see, now it's inserted here, and I can just choose a new track here. Let's say that I want it on track 58, and now I can just enable it like that, and it will actually play in beat with the project. We have the automation tracks. So you can automate basically everything in FL Studio, and I will cover automation in a later section in this course. But this is where the automations will be. So the automations are basically exactly laid out as a clip here or a pattern. So you can just take one of these patterns here, and this will be automation information. So you can just have it, drag it out like a normal track. You can actually see that. So here's the pad. So the chords is a group. Then we have pad, which is MIDI information. Then we have automation of that chords and pad section. Then you have different section here as well. And then we have automation for that. So you can see it by the icon here. So you can see automation here. And as soon as I hold over this icon here, you can see in the information section here what this does. So you can see this is actually a sawtooth, and it's a synthesizer. So it's a synth with a sawtooth in it. And then we have automation here. Here we have a pulse wave from a synthesizer as well. And here we have just melodic score. And by the way, if you're zoomed in like this and you don't know where you are, basically, you can just hold Control or Command on Mac and just right click. Then you're just zoomed out into the maximum zoomed out view possible. Let's talk a bit about the different tools that we have in the playlist. So you can see here we have our little toolbox here, which I call it. And you can see draw is the first one, paint, delete, mute, slip, slice, select, zoom, and playback. So there are different tools here. They are very similar to the ones that are in the piano roll, and they work exactly the same here, but with the clips or the patterns here. So let's select a pattern here. I'm just going to select a random pattern like baseline number 2, for instance, just to demonstrate how this works. So let's do that. Let's zoom in a bit, and let's just put it there. All right. Let's zoom in like that. Okay. So here we have our baseline number 2, and because we have our paint tool enabled here, I can just draw out different patterns and clips like this. Just delete them by right-clicking the mouse as well. So let's say that I have the draw tool here. I can just put one of these clips, and if I left click and hold, it's not actually painting out the patterns here. I'm just going to move them. So if I select one of these, I can just move them like that. So this is very handy to have as well. Then we have our delete tool. So this is basically the same thing as right-clicking on the clip, so like that, but you can do that with the left click instead. Then we have our mute tool. So if I click on one of the clips, you will see it will get muted. If I click it again, it will unmute it. Then we have slip. You can see I'm moving the MIDI data inside of this pattern here. We have our slice tool, and this is basically how much and where you want to move or cut a pattern. Then we have our select tool here. You can select different clips like this. So let's say that I want to select 3. I can just do it like that. Then I can go to the draw tool and move all of these 3 clips. We have the zoom tool. You can just select what you want to zoom in. Like that. You can go even further like this, and you can just go to Command or Control and click to zoom out. Then we have playback. So if you click one of these patterns here, you can just play that pattern. just like that. And to make this a lot easier to do, instead of going and clicking here every time you want to, let's say you want to do anything, it's a lot better to just memorize these different key commands here. So as you can see, as soon as I hold on one of these tools here, you can see the key command for that tool in the info box. So you can see, for instance, the draw tool. If I click P, I just go to the draw tool. If I click B, I will go to the paint tool, and so on and so forth. So let's say that I want to, select. You can see, you can also see that if I right click and hold, I can do the same thing here. So let's say that I want to select, slice, and then draw. So I have P, C, and E. All right. So first I want to draw. So let's just click on P. As you can see, nothing is really happening right now. And this is because we have this on and this enabled right now. It's typing keyboard to piano keyboard. So if you have this enabled, every single keystroke here on your keyboard will be an actual, like a MIDI keyboard playing. So you will play exactly like if you would be playing on a MIDI keyboard. And this is for all of the different keys you have on your keyboard, on your computer keyboard, you know. So let's disable this for now. And now all of the different key commands that is showing up in the info tool here will work. So P to draw, then we have C to slice, E to select, for instance. So P, now the draw tool is enabled here. Then we have the C, which is our slice tool, and E to select. And you can just work very quickly by memorizing these different key commands here. There are a lot of different things you can do with these clips. So let's say that I want to, change color on this clip, for instance. So as soon as I just click on the left-hand side of the clip, you'll get a pattern clip options window. So as you can see, you can preview this, you can select source pattern, edit pattern, you can rename and color, change color, and so on and so forth. So let's say I want to rename and color just this clip here. So let's say that I want to call it chords alternative, because let's say that I changed it up a little bit. So I want to create a different color for this one, just so I can see that this clip is a bit different. So I can do it like that, and now you can see this clip, which is linked to this first one here, is changing the colors. And you can, if let's say that I want to do it with just this one and leave this one alone, because they are now linked, because they are the same pattern, I can make it unique. So let's say that I do it like this, and now you can see it created a new pattern for us, which is the same one, but this is now not linked with the first one. So let's say that I want to rename and color it. I can do it with this one, and you can see it's doing its own thing right now. What you also can do is to put the different pattern clips on whatever track you want here, basically. So it's not locked to the track that you have here. So you can just basically put it wherever you want. Say that I have a clip put in. Let's say I have it somewhere around here, this side, on a new track like that. And you can see this is named something different, and the track is just named track 58 or track 59 in this instance. So what I can do here is to just rename it. I can go to rename color and icon, and I can call it chords pattern, and I can color it the same as our clip here, and that will be fine, you know. But what you can do is to just go and auto name. So now this will be the same name as our clip here, or as our pattern clip, and it will actually do the naming and coloring for us. All of the different tracks here, all the different patterns here are basically grouped together. You can see here in the vocal group, kick group, which contains a lot of different patterns here. So how do you group a track? It's very easy. Just go to the second track, the second pattern that you want to group with the first pattern. So let's say we have two patterns here. I just go to the second one and choose group with above track. So now you can see this one here is the group, and this is the So basically this group is now containing these two patterns here. And if I want to group even more tracks, I can just go to the next one here and choose group with above track. So as you can see, they are now in the same group here. Here you can also see in the playlist the different lines here. You can see that it's kind of like a grid. Let's zoom in a bit so you can see what I'm talking about here. You can see all of the different lines here, which just tells you the time signature of the track. So I can just move this like that and it will stay in the right time. So you can change the fine-tuning of the timing here. So basically how you want the different patterns to be set in time by going to this list here. You can see it's now set on line, but you can change it to cell, you can change it to 1/6 step. So yeah, so let's say we want it to be 1/6 step. You can see now it's only snapping to each of these grids here, as you can see. Like that. And we can also go to none, so now it's basically just random here. You can set it exactly where you want. So it can be out of tune like, or out of timing like that. So that is how you do it with the time signature in FL Studio's playlist. So let's go back to the line here. Happy about how this different pattern clips looks like. It's very easy to customize that. So if you're in the playlist view here and you have the playlist window open, you can just go to this one here and let's go to view and let's go to behind clips, for instance. Here you can choose, let's say that I don't want anything in the background like that, or I can choose some different things here, let's say aqua like that. And now you can really see the different clips here. I will go back to how I had before. So let's go to view here and just go to cell. But I really want to show you that you can choose a lot of different things here. You can see grid color, resize all tracks. You can do a lot of different customization in FL Studio. And this is really unique to FL Studio because different digital audio workstations, they have different kind of customizations as well, but I think FL Studio has the most one. And there's so much you can customize in FL Studio, it's crazy. So if we zoom out a bit in this project here, you can see that there are a lot of different markers here in the arrangement. And how do you do that? You just simply go to wherever you want it to be, just right click here, add marker. And now we can call it whatever. So let's actually call it whatever. And now you can see it, it appears here. So you can do that by just, you want to see where, let's say, our chorus starts or verse starts. That is really nice to have. What you can do with this as well is to put a new time signature. So you can see the time signature for this part until this part here is 3/4, and then we have 4/4 time signature. So you can change the time signature of the track in time here by just doing the same thing, but instead of going to add marker, you just go to add time signature. And this is what is done here. So you can set time signature if you want to change it. So you can just change it to whatever you want. We can listen to, just listen to this track and you will hear what it does with this 3/4 and 4/4 time signature change. That's actually a really nice track. I really like this demo track. It's amazing. But still, as you can see, 3/4 and 4/4. So that is a time signature change that you can do with the marker, basically. What you can do here is to place loop. So if I place a loop here, it will loop to that region. So let's see that I play here and that it will loop to there. So let's delete that loop. so that is a basic overview of the playlist in FL Studio. And I really hope you learned the basic functions of the playlist. With all of the knowledge that I teach you here in this section of the course, you can actually create a track of this. I mean, it's the FL Studio playlist is so versatile, and there are so many functions that we can really dig deep in. But just to create a track, it's very, very easy to just do it with the knowledge that I teach you in this video, in this lecture here. And my really big pro tip here is to just stay organized. So you can see all of the different patterns here are very, very organized with how they look by coloring, naming, grouping, and yeah, besides what I did here actually, because I just show you how to do the groups and just experimented a bit. But what I mean here is with this track here, with the demo project, you can see everything is so organized, named, colored, and yeah, you can see exactly where everything is. So a pro tip to you guys is to stay organized when you produce. It's a lot easier to create a very nice track by doing this. Let's say that you're not organized and you're placing stuff everywhere, and you're just playing your track and you don't know what's going on, or why it sounds bad, or why it sounds out of tune or something like that, because you're not organized, you're not staying organized with your track. And then it's a lot more difficult to just see the error that you want to fix, you know. If you were more organized, if you were coloring and naming everything, then you will see where you have this error, for instance. Alright guys, so let's see you in the next lecture.